Welcome back to another episode of HU Flow. I'm your host, Marilyn Spencer, my co-host, Steven, and today we have Joshua on the show with us today. Joshua is a junior at Harrisburg University. So, Josh, tell us what you're studying.
So I'm studying geospatial technology, and that's at HU GIS, and that is Geographic Information Systems, and it's anything and everything to do with mapping and geography. So, yeah.
So you might not have heard of GIS before if you're listening at home, which I hope you are, maybe in your car, since we are a diverse podcast. But GIS is something very unique to Harrisburg University. And like Josh said, it has to do a lot with mapping. So Josh, tell us, why did you get into GIS specifically? It's not something maybe everyone knows about.
Yeah.
Why do you like it?
So this goes back to a little bit of my timeline as well. I was the first and only intern at the Keystone building for PennDOT in human resources. Within my first week of being there, my supervisors, who are quite high up at PennDOT, um, took me out to a high school in Harrisburg over the summer and showed me this drone camp. And they just talked about what they do, what you can do with it, and what's its STEM applications. And at the time, I was preparing to go to Messiah for neurology, which I learned very quickly in the work field. I don't want to go for another 12, 13 years of school. Um, and I don't want to go to school for something I didn't know was going to be needed then. And also for the rest of my life, deal with people with the same issues as me. Um, so I saw drones, and from that moment on, I was stuck on the aspect of what can I do with drones? And I even have my Mavic Pro packed up under my desk. But from that point on, I've always liked drones. And if you guys know Colin Butler, he's the one who had the dog for a while. Um, he went to CCA with me. He was a year above me, and his father was a vice principal. And rest in peace, his father. He recently succumbed to illness, but and that's very heartbreaking to me because that man alone paved the path for my life because he told my mom about HU and kind of selfishly, and I've reminded Colin about this too, and it makes him feel good when I tell him because of him, I'm at HU, and because of him, I'm so motivated to do everything I do because I figured if someone dealing with what Colin deals with can do this, and unlike high school, you don't get accommodations like you do in college. College, it's either you do it or you don't. You might get some leniency of when you can submit something, but everything's the same amount of work. And I figured if he can do it, there's absolutely no reason why I can't. And because of that, I pushed myself to come here, and I'm in the same program as him as well. So it's really, really cool how it's come full circle, and I've had classes with him. So it's really nice. I actually walked straight out of the Keystone building, came over to HU to meet with Albert Sarvis for the first time. And he had no clue about me. I had no clue about him. But I literally had pulled over a hoodie over my work clothes with my lanyard still on. And he's showing me his basic slides that he shows everyone with interest in the program. And at the end of it, I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, that's great. I don't care what's all the stuff that went into making this, because what I do daily at PennDOT was working with spreadsheets and PowerPoints, and excuse my dog, sorry. But I worked with PowerPoints and all of that, and I said to him, "So this is great, but what's the data that brought to this?" And he looked at me, paused for a second, shut his laptop, and said, "All right, well, come with me." And he took me over to the past GIS lab, and he showed me the type of stuff they do there. And from that point on, we've always had kind of a love hate relationship with each other because out of all of his students, I'm probably one of the worst performing ones, but one of the higher interest ones, because no matter what it is, if he says, "Hey, I need someone to do this," I'm the first one replying back to him or raising my hand saying, "I want to do this. I have no idea what it is, but I want to do this right now. How can I do it?" But yet, in a class setting, it's like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry this is 3 weeks late. Can you give me some credit for this so I don't fail?" Which isn't great, but I'm always the first one to want to try something. And that has gotten me into some trouble, but also some good things, like working at the GIS lab. I've got myself into some trouble with, oh, I want to figure out how to do something better. And it's always reminding me, like, that's great in an education system, but not so much in this system. But yeah, I'm just going to keep rambling on. Sorry.
No, okay,
I
so you brought up a lot of great points. And definitely showed your interest in GIS. So before we talk about, I know you brought up neurology. That is very
Yeah.
interesting. So some of the things that we do talk about on HU Flow, which is geared to most of our high school viewers who may be looking to study GIS one day.
Yeah.
You
Please.
brought up
Please. It's a small program.
You brought up CCA, which is also my, I guess you say alma mater. I don't know. I'm not fancy like that, but I also graduated from CCA. Josh and I, unbeknownst to either of us, both went to CCA, as it is with that high school.
We butted heads at first.
We
You,
did.
you didn't like me at first.
No. But we're obviously friends now, if you can't tell. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. You mentioned accommodations in high school versus college. So let's take it back a little bit in the timeline and focus on what was your transition like from high school to college, maybe mentally, emotionally, and also, well, you did answer how you found HU. So yes, so what was your transition like? And
So, um, I'm kind of gonna go one step further. I had three three to four major transitions in my life, education wise, starting all the way back in first grade. I have attention deficit disorder and OCD, which I make it lighthearted by saying everything has to be organized neatly, but not for very long. Um, so in first grade, I get very overwhelmed whenever I get a timer because I obsess over that timer more than I do doing anything else. So if you guys remember those timed math problems, do as many as you can with the timed math. I panicked every time and I couldn't get past like three of them. And every time they were all wrong. At one point, the teacher took away the timer, said, "Just do it, do your best, take as much time as you need." And I got most of them right. That class was also extremely chaotic. It was her last class of teaching and she couldn't control it. And from that point on, I was always about a year behind everyone else. I really should have been held back, but I wasn't. And up until um, my sophomore year of high school, that's how it was for me. And then my sophomore year of high school, a lot of personal stuff happened that my family and I made the decision to pull me out and put me into another program to help me situate my mental health, and then I went to CCA. At CCA, I realized very quickly that I learned better like that. Also helped that my mom encouraged me to, when I take the tests, look up the answers before you submit it because you tried your best, you learned why you got them wrong, but you also got the good grades. Um, so that's how I went through cyber school until my senior year when I worked for PennDOT. And I think that prepared me the most for my transition to college because as you know, Marilyn, you had to attend live lessons, which sucked.
I actually didn't go. My junior, senior year, I
I
stopped going.
I was excused from every single one of them because I worked full time every day. So I didn't go to any of them, but I still kept up with my work. I would go through and do like a week's worth of math or like 2 or 3 weeks worth of math in a couple days. Not have to worry about that for 2 to 3 weeks. Next day, I would do the same thing for another subject, and that's how I managed my time. And that's kind of still how I do it, but not as much. But that's how I transitioned to college, and I think that prepared me well into making my own decisions on things and discovering how well I work with things. So I think cyber school really prepared me for a lot of what would be thrown at me in college, more so than public school. But I'm also still a firm believer that you should only, in my opinion, you should only do cyber school your last couple years of high school. Otherwise, you will be put at a disadvantage, in my opinion and my experience. That is. My public school also was horrible, where still to this day, if it's 1 plus 1, I have the need to put it into a calculator because from 6th grade on, they told me even if it's 1 plus 1, put it into a calculator. And telling that to a kid with OCD that doesn't have it fully under control yet isn't the best recipe because I still don't know my basic math off the top of my head. Like I can't sit there and go, oh yeah, this, and this, unless if it's in terms of something I've interacted with in a game, like say ammo in a shooter game or blocks in Minecraft and stuff. That stuff has actually surprisingly balanced out a lot of it, and that's kind of how my transition was. I hope that answers your question. I always ramble off and try to come back to the topic.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of what I guess most of the time what we're looking for is basically what you just said, tactics that you used in high school that
Yeah.
maybe still worked in college or you had to change them up a bit.
Mhm.
Because you never know who's listening. A lot of people may be thinking the same things. Maybe they had like a crummy high school and then
Yeah.
like college, they did this. So that's great. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the
It's okay.
biggest thing I could ever say to anyone who likes to talk like I do, don't ever stop talking when you get to college because that alone has saved me so much by showing up early to class and having a full conversation with my professors before and after class anytime I could. And I was told from my first semester to never stop doing that because when I need help and they know who I am and I build a relationship with them, they are 100 times more inclined to help me out with what I need help with. Whether it's I need a couple more points to pass on something really important, or I need a few extra days to do something else. They're more inclined when they actually know who you are and know your personality rather than the person sitting in the back or never showing up to class. And
Yeah,
college
100%.
is communication. You have to build relationships like you're in a workforce, at least at our university. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, talking to your professors is key. It all goes back to like building that support group, not just with friends, but your professors too. They will be the ones to help you out first in a class. So perfect. Over to
yeah.
Steven.
Okay, Josh. You know me, I know you. So fun fact, people, when Josh first came to this university, well, I was one of his first individuals he met. So I know this kid like the back of my hand. Well, since then, I let him do his own thing after a while. So Josh, when you first came to our lovely Harrisburg University, what was the experience like for you, in terms of like making friends, just getting used to the environment? Was it like a culture shock to you? Or was it like, tell us.
So it was kind of the best way I could describe it is a chicken with its head cut off that can only find more resources to allow it to run around more. Because as soon as I came to HU, I realized that 99.9% of people at this university have no clue who I am or this area or anyone who knows me. So I found that as a new experience to leave my old life and start a new one and start with new people. And being local to Harrisburg, I knew Harrisburg. So it started from, hey, if you don't know the area, I can take you wherever. I know where these things are. I know what to do around here. So that starts conversation with people where even if people didn't like me, they knew that if they didn't want to turn to someone who was older than them, they could turn to someone who was the same age and experience as them, but knew the area. And it also helped that I became friends with Tiff and Steven, especially I met you guys mainly because my mom talked to Tiff at orientation, and afterwards Tiff was like, "That kid, I want that kid. I don't know who he is, but I want that kid as my kid." And then I met Steven through Tiff, and you guys were always like, "Let me protect this kid because this kid's running around wild, not understanding anything of what he's doing." But at the same time, when Mora was around, you couldn't stop me. So I made as many friends as possible in as quick a amount of time as possible. And I think within the first semester, I would say 90% of people at least have heard of my name and heard me as either, oh, that weird kid or that kid that knows everyone. And I get that reputation from my mom because everywhere she goes, she knows someone. And whenever I get comfortable, I talk to everyone. So, and I think Steven can vouch for me on that one. I just talk to everything and everyone.
Yeah, I can vouch for
Yeah,
that 100%. There's no question. When you first came here, you were like trying to talk to as many people as you wanted, and I think that's a good thing to do, especially if you're trying to like make friends and everything. Because as a freshman, that's like one of the main things you're doing outside of your case, is trying to make a social atmosphere for yourself. So I understood where you're coming from, and I was like, you know what, if he's just trying to do his thing, I had no problem with it. I mean, that was cool with me. And I knew that, with Tiff, Tiff and I's mentality on it was like, we gotta protect this kid, but also we gotta let him free and do his own thing. So,
yeah.
word of mouth. But like, okay, and also that weird kid, I'm pretty. There was no, don't worry, buddy. You weren't the weird kid. There was a higher up person than you. You in your class. You're fine.
Yeah,
Um, uh, but
yes.
good. So, okay, Josh. So, tell me a little bit about currently, how is your current semester going on? Because it's online, so it's something you're
Yeah.
already used to from your high school. So,
Mhm.
for a lot of people, it's different. But how are you currently managing online like education?
So this semester is the first semester I finally am on top of stuff. Um, it took me a while to get to this point, but I'm on top of everything. Everything's going very smoothly this semester so far, and I'm working on my project one right now, so that's fun. Um, and just overall, this semester has been very, very good, almost too good, where I'm getting a little worried. Um, but the past semesters have been all right. Um, online school, I mean, Marilyn can vouch for me on this. Every time we've had class together and we heard something was online, we both looked at each other like, well, that's an easy A, because we have our own methods to do our stuff. And kids with more freedom with education may not learn better, but we learn how to pass things. We learn how to pass them in some way. So, and that's like a quote straight from Steve Jobs of, if you're going to hire anyone to do something quick, you hire the laziest person you can find because they will always find the quickest and easiest way to do it.
You're not wrong.
And yeah, so I think with cyber school, it gave me a lot of advantages of, I know how to pass things and I know how to make sure I can retain it for a later date. But with cyber school, you don't really have to, they can't stop you from using resources when you need to use memorization. So in a classroom setting, tests are the most stressful thing to me because I have to memorize everything. I couldn't even remember both of your names until like the second year, and both of you knew that. Steven looks like he doesn't know, but
No, I
I
knew.
promise he knows.
I know.
But in cyber school, whenever I saw tests, it was like, nice, easy A, Quizlet, here I come. Um, but yeah, I think this semester and previous ones with online stuff has been a lot better. Mora and Marilyn have both seen me break down for an exam in scientific mind because man, I was so stressed that I had the periodic table drawn on my arm and we still did not use it.
Wait, wait,
Yeah.
I
wait.
also wrote the elements down on my arm. Sorry, Belgrave, but I cannot memorize anything.
That's why
No.
I was doing that weird shit in the library on your arm.
Yes, because it's an online school thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know about you, Marilyn, but I would have two tabs. One tab over here of the exam, and one tab over here of researching it.
This is nostalgia. Yes, I would do that.
And I think that's a better way of learning.
Yeah,
Me personally,
I
because
honestly, sometimes when I was taking a math test, I would be learning the problems as I was taking the test. I'm like, oh, so that's how you did it. Because they give you homework, I'm like, I can't do this.
yeah, and especially like anything, not even necessarily math related, but anything because it's so drilled in your head like, oh, look at what you got, look at your results, look them up, look up why you got them wrong. Well, why can't I do that while I do the exam?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how I learn. I know I'm not going to go back and look at these answers. Like, other than my major, I don't care. Just give me my results and I'm going to move on because half of the time we don't have time to move on or look back. So why can't we just do it while taking the exam? And a lot of colleges are actually getting rid of exams for that reason. It's all designed to, how much can you memorize when we literally have the world in our pockets? But yeah, I'm getting off topic again. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
not really. You kind of still answer the question of like how your online semester it is, and you kind of hit on some notes about your education specifically. So it's really good things to still know about. But my next question I'll ask before I pass it back to Marilyn would be more centered on the concept of cliques. So to give you an idea what I mean by that, just little circles at a university specifically I'm focusing on. But at a typical small university like ours, they're gonna have the small friend groups where it's like everyone has this one friend. So what is your opinion on cliques?
So it that's a very, I'm gonna sound like Jordan Peterson here. That's a very subjective thing. Um, Clicks can be very useful. They can be also very, very bad. Um, an unhealthy clique where it is the traditional mean girls type clique, that's when it's not very healthy. It's not supportive to anything progressive. But when you get into like our university is STEM, aside from the one-off business major here, um, no offense, but our university is run by a businessman, so it's clear why we have business here. It still belongs in STEM. Still belongs in STEM. I believe that. Well, sorry, STEAM now. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but it's now STEAM. The A was added for arts, which, yay, now my girlfriend is a part of this. And that is official thing. So if you go to the STEM organization's official websites, it's now STEAM. So we are now more of a STEAM college. We just need to bring more arts in. So Steven, you're more art now. Um, but um, back with clicks, I guess what you would call my clique is mainly like Adam, Marilyn, you, Connor. So I have some GIS. My best friend in college is Adam, and he is computer science, and that man is brilliant. That man is absolutely brilliant with what he does, and he has a very, very smart outlook in life. Whenever I get worried, somehow he always brings me back up with saying that he believes I'm going to be successful based off of just the sheer amount of knowledge that I have on what I do. And I think I would call that more just progressive of we all bring something different. We all come from a different background. And Connor, his main focus is the military, but you can only be in the military for so long. So his next best is GIS. And he loves GIS, but he loves it different from me. I love it for the reasons of it's my life. I mean, my desk right now is literally an antique um, RV like table that has a map of the United States on it, and I have a light up globe to the left of me and a little crystal globe next to that. So I absolutely love it. I eat, breathe, bleed this stuff. I love everything about GIS and maps, and I even have a map next to me, 14th Infantry in Germany, that needs to be hung up once I finish my room. But I think clicks can be very good if you use them right. If you're with people who are healthy for you and you're healthy for them, you will always learn something from each other. But if you're in a clique that is unhealthy, you're never progressing. You're only just either plateauing or making it worse for each other because you're not actually pushing each other up, saying, you can do this better, or being confident enough and comfortable enough to say, I know you didn't do your best on that. What happened? And I think that's very, very important. Without Adam, I wouldn't have gotten through my computer science classes because he helped me as he's a tutor. And in his words, because he's my friend, he would sit with me for 3-4 hours from 9 to 12 o'clock going through my labs with me and helping me out when I had no clue what I was doing. So it really pays off to know people. And I think everyone has heard the term, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that applies to everything. But yeah, so like I said, I'm kind of like Jordan Peterson on the aspect of I blow
Well,
everything way bigger than it should be and then make it as specific as possible.
I think that's a good thing though to have. Like there's some things or some topics people bring up that like you can think about it from one perspective and just be done with it. But then if you have
Yeah,
another perspective that actually goes more deeper into it, then you learn much more. So I think I enjoy those type of like conversations, and I think that was a good point to bring up about clicks. So I like that, dude. Definitely. So
well, thank you.
Marilyn, do you have any questions you want to ask? Josh.
Yeah, so I like to ask people who attend our prestigious university what they like to do extracurricular wise. So, outside of the classroom, what does your day look like? Have you joined any clubs, or do you have any favorite spots around the city?
Um, I haven't joined any clubs, but when we were at HU, since Adam lived on campus and I did not, he did not have a car with him. I did, so we could go anywhere at any time. And sure, you've heard about Maura and I's incident with the police. My first and only ever ticket was $170 because we were racing at 8:50 to get to Cornerstone Coffee House, which is at with traffic 10 minutes away. That closes at 9. And we wanted milkshakes, so we were speeding around, and that was my first experience with getting pulled over. And I know this is kind of off topic of what you were saying, but it is a fun story of I've never been exposed to tension between authority and what's going on in the world, specifically with people of an African American descent. I had Darius in the back seat, and I saw this old white sheriff who I don't know what his beliefs were, but he looked like he wouldn't be too happy if he was sitting in the front seat. So instinctively, I look back at Darius and I'm like, I'm not going to have a dead black kid in the back of my car. Just be quiet, please. I don't want to deal with this right now. And it wasn't anything like me being prejudiced. It was just, I didn't want my friend hurt. And I put him in this situation because he didn't want to go. But Maura and I poked at him to go. And my idiot driving got me pulled over in Lemoyne, apparently going 30 over. I argued it because Maura's hair was not moving like it was when we were going faster. So I was like, no, I know that we weren't going that fast because I'm in a convertible and her hair's not moving. So we good. I talked him down to making it 5 over. Still got a hefty ticket. No points though. But my life around the city is kind of I really like Cornerstone Coffee House. I love their milkshakes. The Pennsylvania Bakery near there, I love that. And recently, hopefully soon, when I turn 21, I can actually go to JV Love Drafts, which I'm sure Steven knows what that is, because that's the gaming bar in Harrisburg. Um, it's the best of literally everything for me because it's that grungy, dingy, back alley bar type thing. Then it has video games and a bunch of nerds in it, and it's also a popular metal scene. in Harrisburg, where before COVID, they always had shows like local metal bands playing there, and you had both classic video game consoles to modern video game consoles. So it's really cool, but you have to be 21 to actually be in there. But I managed to walk in a couple times because they were just like, ah, you're good to go. But yeah, and I don't know if you know about this, Marilyn, but the time that Moore and I discovered Anna Rose was a speakeasy, um, yeah, that was Mora walking around the city at like 3 o'clock in the morning. But yeah,
How'd you
I
get
don't know what
in?
she did. I don't know why she does that stuff, but
I don't
yeah,
either, but it's okay. I don't need to know.
yeah. As long as she's safe, she hasn't died yet.
Not yet. No, I trust her because she always does crazy stuff and comes out alive. So
Yeah. But yeah. And I also did want to touch onto my project one because
yeah,
I think
absolutely. Tell us about your
I
project
think it's
one.
very very interesting to my major as well. My project one initially was going to be working with Adam to make a um, a program with a professor, kind of like an app, kind of like Pokemon Go, where you go around and you catch like geocaches and stuff. But we needed to program it and stuff. That didn't really follow through. But what did was, um, I'm working with the West Shore Historic Society right now, which they want. So out past the Carlisle Pike. I don't know if I think Steven knows. I don't know if you know, Marilyn, but that's um, that's towards Kohl's and Target and Chick-fil-A out. Um, best way I can describe it is Carlisle Pike. But out there, there's a farm called Hemp Farm, not a hemp farm. That's the family name, Hemp. It's about 250 years old, and it's being sold soon to be bulldozed over and put homes on top of. Well, the West Shore Historic Society wants to preserve that. They want to archive it. So I'm going to actually go out there with our massive six rotor, um, our six rotor drone and take some 3D imagery of it, an automated flight of 3D flight path to stitch the images together. And I'm working on that right now as my project one and two to research what we can do with that because on the surface it's a very simple sounding project. Um, and it is. You go out there and you fly, and that could be barely even an internship. But what's extending it out is I have to research everything about it, find what you can do with it, how you can display the data, how you can collect it. Like, you know, I don't know how much you guys know about the technology I use, so this may go over both of your heads, but ArcGIS Online and ArcMap, ArcPro, and I'm going to be using Pix4D for the software of actually the pre-planned flight to, without me touching anything, it should fly up and go around what I plan out and stitch everything together. And then I'm going to put it into ArcGIS Online. Well, first ArcPro to digitize the images and make them how I want them and the projection I want them. And then I'm going to move that to a story map, which will be for archival purposes of displaying it as everything done research wise, everything done project wise. And the second part of the project, so project two, is going to be the actual execution of all of this. Although it's plan that I'm going to be taking the imagery late March if there's not snow everywhere, because the ideal time is leaves off because that provides the most coverage. But at the same time, to operate this equipment, you need it at a certain temperature. So leaves off isn't always the best time because this drone has 6 rotors on it and 2 batteries and a $50,000 camera on it. It's not cheap, to say the least, and to have that thing either freeze or overheat and fall out of the sky is far from ideal. Um, so that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, and I'm very excited to also use something I got from Goodwill that I found. It's these really, really ugly black and white tiles, like vinyl tiles that you put in a kitchen. And I got it for like $3, and it's like a pack of 15 or 20 of them. But what's really nice is that, um, so the points that we use to stitch things together, um, it's a black and white square pattern. It's 2 black squares, 2 white squares, and professional ones for like 3 or 4 of them, it can be like a couple $100. What we use at the lab is literally printed out sheets that are um, laminated, and then we put that on a steel plate, and that's what we use to mark our GPS points. But I found a whole pack of them, and I was so happy about it that when I told Sarvis, he even said that he was jealous of it. Um, so I'm very excited to take those out into the field and poke holes through the center, because we use Trimble units to mark our GPS points, which will get us to survey grade accuracy, even though we don't need survey grade. Um, and this is all basically my talk. I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can, so
No,
anyone listening
that's okay.
knows. But we really have a lot of language that we do, and also to add to this, the GIS lab, we work with mind maps. I don't know if you guys knew that, but we get about 100,000 maps at a time from um, DEP, which is Department of Environmental Protection for the state, and we get about 100,000 of them, and they're all paper maps that were drawn of historic mines in Pennsylvania, and these can be from early 1900s. We have to carefully scan them in, and then we georeference them. So oftentimes these maps, you know, unlike Google Maps or something, you can't just look up where these mines are. They're abandoned. So these maps have some surface features on them, like they might have a house that's labeled, like they might have a structure that's labeled church. You got to look for those because churches, as I think Marilyn, you're at least somewhat religious, as you know, churches don't move. It's it's not looked upon nicely when they're even restored, let alone to move them or demolish them. It's a very big no-no in the world of religion and beliefs in that church. So whenever you see a church labeled on a map, you know most likely it's still there. So you can start with that and say that I know, because it starts with, I know that this is in Pennsylvania. I know that this is in this county. That's the most you know. And maybe you have a state game land. So you know that there's a specific state game land somewhere near here. And then you have this obscure road that, because these cartographers label it as um, entry road. Well, that doesn't help me. And that road could be gone. It could have been temporary for the mine, or it could be a public road. But if it's connecting to that church, it's most likely a road that still exists because the church still exists. So you find that, and it might be like literally that size to the rest of the map. And you start with that and you say, well, I know for a fact this is here. So let me go to the next corner and see if there's anything else surface wise. Then once it's accurately georeferenced, it moves to being vectorized. It moves to being mosaic with the images. So just like a mosaic piece of glass, where it's a bunch of little pieces of glass, you're taking maps that overlap, that are accurate because we georeferenced them and said, okay, it's within this range, so it's good. They're mosaic together, and then they're moved to vectorizing, where we literally go through, basically trace every working on these maps, which doesn't sound too bad, but when you have three different veins, three different coal veins, and 8 different owners, where all of them have to be separate, and they're all in the same color ink overlapping each other, you really have to know what is what. And you go through and you do that. Then it goes back to mosaicing, where now it can be placed as this is accurate. So, and the purpose for that is if someone wants to build on this land, they have to know what's underneath of it. Say, I'm sure both of you know what Centralia is. It's that has been burning for a very long time. Um, I have seen the maps, the original maps of that. And with the technology we have at the lab, fortunately, I didn't go, but we actually went out there with geothermal cameras. And from the sky with a drone, we could see all of the heat spots of this mine where everything's burning. And then we took those images back and matched them with the georeferenced maps, saying that here's where the GPS said we were from our drone. So we could not only say we have the workings here and what's here, what boreholes are here, what vents are here, what pillars are here, but we could also pinpoint this fire's here. And that gets into the biggest thing of what GIS is used for is contingency planning. So emergency planning of things. So that ground is unstable. Say there's a wooden pillar, because oftentimes the makeshift way for mines in PA was literally taking a whole tree and propping it up as a pillar. Well, if coal is burning down there and it's spreading, we now know where those pillars are and we know where that fire is. So we know what's most likely to go first. So when there's people walking across it before they covered it with dirt, which I'm against them covering it with dirt, but I'm also against that people should not have been going there, even though I very, very was willing to go there. We know which parts could have been saved, which parts we could have allowed people to walk on, and which parts we couldn't. That's why, like, when people were covering it with dirt, it was so controversial, especially in the GIS world, because we knew what was safe and what wasn't, but we had no say because it was privately owned. But yeah, I'm so sorry for like just rambling on.
No problem.
I get very passionate about this stuff, and
Yeah.
Never apologize.
No, don't. Okay, so I just have one more question that I'm gonna wrap into like a part A, part B situation before I pass it over to Steven to close. So for someone who is looking to get into GIS, what should they do? Where should they start? And then what are you looking to do in the future after you graduate with GIS?
So I think first I'm going to start with what I would like to do. What I would like to do is just anything mapping wise. I've learned that I'm not too fond of working for local government only because you get less freedom and their technology is outdated. But I want to work in a project manager type position. So I follow in my father's footsteps with that. And I'm leading people, and I really want to do something um, just geographic. And recently I was out at Fort Indiantown Gap, which is a military base in PA. It's halfway to Reading from Harrisburg. And they have a lot of erosion because they dump about 150 million rounds there a season. And there's no way you can clean up that amount of lead. Um, and those bullets are ending up somewhere, and it's in the mountain, not even just the shells, but the actual projectile. So they got a lot of erosion from there, and that that brings into what you should know before getting into this. Um, GIS can do everything. It is applied to anything and everything. Um, if you can put a, a coordinate to it, it's GIS. And I really like the quote from one of the Mythbuster guys, Adam Savage, of the only difference between messing around and science is taking notes on it. And that is the most true thing for GIS because if you're messing around with software and messing around with maps, if you document your process, that is the difference between someone knowing what they're doing and someone not knowing what they're doing. And before you get into this or have any interest in it, you can apply it in so many ways. You can do everything from drone mapping of flying up a drone and just doing maps, or even um, search and rescue missions where you're dropping off IEDs, not IED, uh, AG. IED is not the right thing. AG. So, so things to help people survive. The paddles to jumpstart someone's heart, and you can drop that off to someone. There was studies done in Turkey where drones have dropped off stuff like that to people who are stranded in snowy mountains that you can't get to otherwise. Um, you can go out and do surveying like in Fort Indiantown Gap, where you're actually going to these well sites and putting on waders and getting into the rivers and looking at what's there and taking samples of it, which gets into Tiff's major of an environmental science. You can go towards the computer science aspect where you become a GIS developer. So you're coding stuff, you're programming everything with it. You're running with Python language, C sharp. Uh, Previously was very common to use R. Um, there's a whole thing of everything, and even in the business aspect of it, you need people who can run a team because the most common errors that people make is, well, we need a GIS team, but we have no idea what it is. So you have three people who are basically speaking a foreign language to each other and then saying, here's what you want. Then the client looks at it and goes, I have no idea what this is. This isn't what I asked for. They say, well, this is to the T of what you asked for. And that's where the business side of things comes in, of a business analyst saying, what is this? Why is this? How do I translate your language to their language? And how do I mesh these together to say, this is what they want, this is how you can do it? So there really is a lot of aspects to it, but I definitely would recommend if you're if you are looking to apply to any university, not just HU for GIS, when looking at GIS, look at what their university provides for it. Our university has a computer science program that's ABET accredited, which means that it's basically, in simple terms, if you graduate from our university with computer science and you go into the military will not train you on computer science because you were held to standards that were higher than military standards. So in the military, you would be expected to know more than anyone else there. So it's an easy shot at it. But that comes into GIS where we have to know everything. We have to take MEVA classes. We have to take IMED classes. We have to take computer science, environmental science. We have to know all of it because we can be applied to all of it. If you're more cartographic, you're going to be in more interactive media where you're creating interactive stuff and visually appealing stuff. If you're doing stuff that's running certain tools at mass volumes and working with big data, you're going to be in computer science. So figure out what type of GIS you want to do. And if you're going to a university that isn't very specialized, and look at their program goals for our university, we use Python. We have to know Python, we have to know computer science, we have to know IMED, and we work with new software. But if you're looking at a university that doesn't, look maybe to getting a computer science degree because that's going to help you in the long run. The two biggest things that people focus on is, do I get a GIS bachelor's degree and a certificate in computer science? Or do I get a certificate in GIS and a bachelor's in computer science? And it really comes down to how the university is set up. Penn State is another good one to get a GIS degree at. If you're at Messiah, it's a mix, maybe dual major. If you're at something like Hack, look at computer science and then look at a certificate in GIS, especially now that the field is going towards computer science. We're looking at programmers more because we want to automate stuff. We don't want to go through and do these repetitive tasks anymore when we can hire someone to stop the 5 people from doing it every month for 3 weeks. You can have one programmer and one debugger that writes it and maintains it, that is automated where it will run every month. And you're eliminating the workload of it, meaning that all the stuff that you can't do program wise right now, you can do that by hand. So there really is a lot of routes you can take. Our university happens to be one of the better ones with program future wise. We strive to do all of the innovative stuff that is becoming it is becoming the industry standard, but has not fully been adapted, which means that out of college you have more of an opportunity to go further with things. And and, and as you said, with this being a closer, if you want to know any information about it, this is when it kind of becomes like an ad. If you want to know any information about anything GIS, Wednesday, November 17th is GIS Day for 2021. And the university, it looks to be for the third year in a row, will be hosting the Pennsylvania GIS Day, meaning that Penn State University will have summits, Harrisburg University will have summits, Messiah will. There will be a bunch of other people like Esri there doing talks, just a whole bunch of stuff. And if you want to try out mapping software, but don't want to spend $500-600 a year on the GIS software, QGIS is a very good open source program that is very commonly used for anyone not using Esri software. So any information you need or would be curious about would be answered at GIS Day. And that's also a global event where if you even go on Reddit and look at the GIS Day Reddits or GIS Reddits, you can find hundreds and thousands of people posting links to their online summits or invitations to their in-person summits for GIS Day. It's it sounds like another cheesy one of those things. Oh, it's GIS Day, but it's actually a pretty big deal in GIS to say, here's a day dedicated to it where here's every single application, anything you could ever do with it in one place. So yeah, and sorry for rambling again.
Stop apologizing, man. You're good. You're good. You're good. I love the fact that you're very passionate about what you do, and I think that's important. I mean, if you're not passionate about it, then why the hell are you in it? So I love hearing about all the stuff you're doing, all the amazing things that you're interested in, your amazing project one that you get to do with that awesome drone. I mean, that's dope to me. And I mean, I love learning the process that you're doing. So I'm proud of you. Because like I said, when you got here, you were the opposite. Now you're doing all this stuff, and I'm amazed by it. So I'm proud of you. I wish nothing but the best in that. And with that being said, Marilyn, do you have anything else you want to ask Josh before I close this out? All right, cool. Well, Josh, thank you for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate having you on. We loved hearing what you were saying. And for those who are interested in anything Josh said, there will be links below to a lot of GIS related material, along with our GIS website that we have for our university. If you want to check out stuff we've done there. And Josh's name's down there as one of the many people who work for the GIS lab. So be sure to check out some of his work as well. And for that being said, as for your host of A2Flow, my name is Steven. That's Marilyn. And today's guest was Josh of Riess. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Later.